It was just inconceivable for me that human beings had been to the moon, and yet we couldn't fix this problem in small islands. I cannot really put it into words, but it's this sort of peaceful feeling of this is what you're meant to be doing.
Warning, this show contains upfront and unfiltered opinions. I'm Salber, and I'll be chatting to a bunch of young people to hear what they've been up to as they deal with this mess of a planet we have inherited. Thank you, parents. We'll be diving into the environment, climate change, the psychological repercussions we have been experiencing, the dreams, the dread, the humor, the hope. Oh my God. Now, what next? Let's meet today's guest. So, before further ado, please join me in welcoming today's guest, Martim Cunha. Martim has a background in spacecraft engineering and is the founder and CEO of Aeon Energy. The team at Aeon is creating some of the most effective solutions in the renewable energy market to harness the natural energy surrounding us, helping especially climate-vulnerable communities with limited or no access to traditional resources like wind, solar, hydro.
Thank you so much for the invitation and for that introduction.
So walk us through, if you don't mind, your trip to the Maldives in 2019 and the significance of this experience on your journey. Little birdie told me that it wasn't swimming with the manta rays that stuck with you.
No, it wasn't. But coming back, I couldn't really stop thinking about the diesel. So when you see in the postcards or in the pictures of the Maldives, you see all these bright colors of blue and these amazing landscapes. But what you don't really hear is the constant humming of the diesel in the background. Because we're talking about hundreds of islands that don't really have an alternative apart from constantly burning diesel. The more I thought about it, the more I thought that no one was really trying to come up with different alternatives and different ways of doing it. So yeah, we took it upon ourselves to try and figure out a better way. It was just inconceivable for me that human beings had been to the moon.
Houston, we have a problem.
And yet we couldn't fix this problem in small islands.
How did you start? So you had this burning desire to do something about it.
This is actually a story I don't tell very often.
Oh?
I'm going to be honest.
I'm from Portugal. I'm from the south of Portugal. And so I was at the beach.
Let's go to the beach, eat, let's go get a wave.
And I was essentially looking at some seaweed. And that sort of started a chain of thought. Well, I realized that essentially they harness solar energy and they're floating. So they're responsible for more carbon capture than the entire Amazon forest, right? And that thought just gradually evolved into, well, why can't we do the same? And in the process, fixing these issues in islands. So they don't really have any land space available. So if we can take energy generation into the ocean, we can essentially enable them to become diesel-free and not taking up any land space.
And in terms of concrete steps, where did you go from there?
I was studying engineering at Imperial at that point, and I didn't really know any. I've never taken an economics or an entrepreneurship class, so I had no. I knew a company needed to make more money than the one it spent.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
But that's pretty much all I knew. So basically I looked into the possible competition, what people were doing, if there were any floating solar companies, the projects that they had. So I realized that floating solar was actually an emerging market. And all the installations were in dams, rivers, lakes, all those environments. And my question was, well, why aren't we taking advantage of the ocean, which is the largest water body on Earth? So after realizing that there was a niche or a way that we could position ourselves as different and innovative, I essentially started looking for people that had other technical skills that I didn't have. So once we had sort of a proof of principle, something that shows that, okay, this actually can be done technically, then we started looking for funding.
Incredible. I read somewhere that you consider it your purpose to help address the climate and energy crisis. This word purpose is so loaded, and some describe it as a deep knowing, or they hear a voice.
I can tell he's crazy just by looking at me.
Whether it's literal or metaphorical. But like, let's break that down. Like, what does purpose mean to you? And at what point in your life did you become aware of it?
I cannot really put it into words, but it's this sort of peaceful feeling of this is what you're meant to be doing. I worked a lot of jobs throughout uni and basically things to pay the bills, and I did that because I had bills to pay. But this is completely different. It's something like you're there, and if someone asked you, well, if you had $1 million, what would you be doing? This.
In the field of renewable energy efforts, who would you identify as a villain?
Oh. That's a nice question. Well, I guess two types of people. So, first of all, the skeptics.
Are you suggesting that the Philadelphia experiment used alien technology?
You're not suggesting that a headless body kicked his way out of a latched morgue freezer.
You don't honestly believe this is some kind of an extraterrestrial?
Those people that, for a number of reasons, say that things are never possible. So that skepticism sometimes is contagious. I felt a bit discouraged. So I'd say that skeptics and people that are trying to push the oil agenda further.
So it's done, finally.
Working in sort of developing nations, there's a lot of green incentives, but there's also a lot of inertia, which is probably caused by various conflicting interests.
So your solution comes to market this year, and I get the feeling it's a well-kept secret, as there's not much information we could find out there.
That's a secret.
But any spoilers you can reveal about the technology you're developing?
So I can tell you that it's essentially a mix between solar and wave energy. Mm-hmm. So we're able to, which is really cool because we as humans are solar beings, right? We get up with the sunrise and we go to bed with the sunset. And our activity patterns are directly linked to our energy consumption patterns. So we need more energy throughout the day. And then during the night, we need sort of a base load of energy.
Is bonkers to me. Warning, this show contains...
Which, when you think about mixing the sun and the waves, that's exactly what you get. You get a constant base load, which is given by the wave energy, and then you get an extra boost during the day from the sun. we're not only competing against traditional renewable energy solutions, we're also competing against batteries. And that's sort of our main USP. We think that a diversified solution is the way to go, but by installing our technology, essentially you're replacing both conventional solar and batteries whilst taking up zero land space. So we think our solution is sort of the only viable way forward.
That's my opinion!
In relation to life, your work, existence in general, what would you say you fear?
Oh. I wasn't expecting that one.
We like unexpected questions.
Personally, probably spreading myself too thin.
Work like 80 to 100 hour weeks every week.
Basically being able to do a bit of all of that and within the normal time commitment of a startup, which is 95% of your life, being able to dedicate those 5% effectively to people in my life. So failing to do that would probably be my biggest personal fear.
Beautifully said, and I think a lot of us can relate to exactly those words.
I read this really interesting book, but essentially it teaches you to counterbalance. The example that it gave was the ballerina when it's sort of balancing. Actually, if you zoom, you'll see that she's microscopically counterbalancing herself. And basically the example was that in work and relationships, sometimes you go too much in one direction, then you sort of need to artificially counterbalance in the other.
Looking back on the younger version of yourself, which 3 words would you use to describe your journey up to this moment right now here with me?
I'd say, so the journey itself.
The journey is usually the part that you remember anyways.
Well, first of all, very lucky. I try to think about every day is how lucky I've been. Then probably just unexpected, just sort of reacting to what happens as opposed to trying to have this fixed plan and not deviating from it. My whole goal when I came to the UK was doing my degree and having some sort of pilot role. I wanted to be in sort of a fighter pilot or some really interesting piloting job. And I'm a clean tech entrepreneur, so it's a big difference. I sort of, instead of keeping focus on the plan, I just reacted to what happened. And the third word would probably be not resilience, but sort of just being able to keep going. Being a founder is an emotional, personal, and professional roller coaster. One day you're at the top, you get all the funding and everything works well. But then the next day you need to get more people and you cannot find an electrical engineer.
That's it for another episode of Now What? Thank you again for joining me, and a special thanks to Martim for taking the time to walk us through what he's doing with his company, Aeon. If you'd like to find out more information about the company and about Martim himself, have a look in the description box below and you'll find a link to the company website and to his personal LinkedIn account. If you like what we do here at Now What? Like this video, subscribe to Sirocco, comment. See you next time.
Yeah. desert.